Welcome to a new live stream. And I think I need to fix my webcam. Yes, so that you see less of the stuff in my background. Welcome to this new edition. Yeah, I moved my webcam since last time, I think. I think this will work like this. Let me just check. Am I in focus? Maybe it's a bit too low still. Let's go a bit higher. Yes. So welcome to this new stream. We will make a new extension today. This extension I will not publish on Packagist. It will just be a test extension, but you can use the concepts we show here in new extensions, and I will put the code on GitHub so that you can take a look at it afterwards. Yeah. So what I have prepared. I see we have one person watching, and we have Billy who thinks he can join. I don't know if that's you who's online. Actually, I can check. I see nobody in the chat, so I don't know. I don't know if Billy is online. Okay, so let's get started. Yeah, if there is only one people, I will probably say what I'm saying here again later. But yeah, anyway, let's start. So I have prepared something new. I have made. Oh, can I? I can no longer see me when I put this in full screen. I hope you can still see it. Can I disable? Can I disable the thing on my other screen? Maybe not. Anyway, I think it works. Yes, I'm seeing the preview now. Okay, so what I have made, how do we switch to? Okay, I should have prepared this better. I think there is a way to have the red cursor, but anyway, okay, I will keep this just large screen like this. So a bit of theory. There is a lot when we want to send the data from the backend to the frontend. There's a lot of stuff we need to configure in Flarum. Because a lot of this is actually because of Flarum is using the JSON API syntax. So this is a standard for JSON requests and responses. So we follow this syntax. And because we follow this JSON API syntax, when we want to pass data from the backend to the frontend, or vice versa, we have some libraries to help us with that. So this is what the serializer does in Flarum. It's actually a separate library, but we have integrated this into Flarum. And the serializer is used to transform something into something that's JSON API compliant. And usually we use a serializer to serialize an eloquent model, but it does not have to be. It could be something else. But yeah, most of the time we need to configure a serializer with attributes and relationships. And often they will directly map to an eloquent model. And that eloquent model is used to retrieve data from the database. So eloquent, this is from Laravel. So this works exactly like in Laravel. We have a few additional goodies in Flarum because we have added extenders so that we can extend the attributes and relationships of existing models that are added by Flarum itself or by other extensions. So yeah, so if we have the full flow here, basically when we want to return some data, we want it in the JSON API format. So we take it from the database using an eloquent model. The eloquent model is used to feed the serializer. The serializer is used inside of the controller to generate the output. And in the front end, each resource that we have in the JSON API payload has to map to a model, because Flarum will use that information. Actually, you don't really have to put it, the store and model, it's optional. You don't really need to put the data inside of it, but Flarum will automatically do it if it can, and it's very useful. So basically, if you have a resource inside of the JSON API payload, you will usually map it to a model. And when you have something mapped to a model, automatically you can have it accessible from the Flarum store. So this side is JavaScript, and the other side is PHP. But the kind of the downside you can see with this is that we have relationships in 3 different places, and we will need to define it in 3 different places. Same with the attributes, we will need to define them in 3 places. Sometimes we can skip a bit of logic, but mostly there are 3 places where we need to define the attributes. We need to define them at the eloquent level, at the serializer level, and at the model level. And sometimes you can skip some of the steps, but we will use all of this. And what we are particularly interested in today are relationships, because we had a discussion on the forum. Someone was asking about something in regard to developing extensions. And I realized that in all of my streams, you have seen me add attributes. We have added a lot of attributes. We have never added a relationship. So we will focus on relationships, but because we have, because when you have a relationship, you also have another model that's connected, and that other model will have attributes. So we'll see both attributes and relationships. And just to finish the theory, I have made a different graphic just for the write. So basically it's the same. When we want to send data from the front end to the backend, again, we will try to use the JSON API syntax. We don't have to, of course. In Flarum, you can create a controller that will read any kind of data. But here in this extension, you will see we will need to do it because we integrate with other parts of Flarum, which already use JSON API. So in the other direction, basically you have the same. You can use the model and the store to help generate the API payload. You don't have to. You could craft the API payload manually. Sometimes we do it, sometimes not. It depends on the situation. But most of the time you will use the store and model to help make the request. And in the backend, a controller will handle the request. In the other direction, what is missing is the serializer, because usually we don't use a serializer. I mean, not usually, I mean the serializer. The serializer is one way. Everything else is two-way, but the serializer is one way. It's used to create the payload. It's not used to convert from a request to something to save. So when we save, we just use the controller to read the information manually from the payload. Then we do the manipulation using eloquent, or we could do something else depending on what we are trying to save. But in our case, we will do manipulations with eloquent, which in turn will save to the database. And something that's not shown here is that usually when you make a write request, you also get back the data in the other direction. And when you get the data in the other direction, it's the same as the read part. So in the other direction, we have the eloquent model and we go through all the other direction. We use the serializer to serialize the new model and we return it. So we have all of this. And we will have to use these different parts. So let me know if you have any question. I see we have, oh cool, we have one person watching, but 2 likes. Okay, that's nice, I guess. What we will do, we will use a new extension. We will create a new extension. So, I should have opened this one. So, just like always, I will use the extension generator by Friends of Flarum. At some point it will need an update because I always need to change some stuff, but so I'm copying the command here. You see I can call it like this with the directory name. Next I will go to my beta 14 folder. Here I have a workbench already set up, and in here I will create a new project. So that and the name of the folder will be Flarum X in the, so how did I call the stream again? Interests, I think. Interests. This. So this utility will ask me a few questions. First, it will be downloaded, because npx is a way to call node packages without actually downloading them, so it downloads them when you call them. So which folder do you want to write to? That's correct. The name of the extension, like the package name. So in my case, it's not super important because I will not actually publish it, but I will follow my usual syntax. So my own GitHub username, that I use as a namespace everywhere. So Clark Winkelmann / and then Flarum X interests. Description. Let users select interests. It's pretty random, like for discussion, because we still don't really know what we will do, but I will discuss in a second what we will do. The package namespace will be my usual namespace and interests, plural, author name, that's me, email, then license, it will be MIT, so you can reuse it. Extension name will be interests. Admin, CSS and GS, yes. Usually I just accept everything here and I just delete what I don't need later when I check that I actually don't need them. But we will need most of it. Maybe the CSS we will not need. But yeah, and now it says extension ready. Next, I will actually open it. So let's open this new project. So it will be found. How many things did I open here? So projects, beta 14, workbench, and here we should have the new extension. So it's called interests. Sometimes I need to refresh. Yes, now it's here. Flarum X refresh. Flarum X interests. And yeah, now it's open. So this is the contents that we get from the extension generator. I will make a few changes like always. First, I will replace the license file. So I will copy the license from another extension because I prefer it to be txt, and something else, I usually copy my editor config because I like these 2 files. So let's go, where is it? Flarum X interests. Let's paste this, let's delete the original license. And I think we are good to go. Next part will be composer.json. I will reformat this one to 4 spaces. So here we have some of the things that were selected. Something that's not updated is the Flarum requirement. So, okay, so usually I do the upper or equal to beta something and smaller than something else. But because I will not publish this extension, I will just use the minimum requirement. So I will just make it at least beta 14. That way it can be installed on future versions, even if maybe it's not compatible. Yeah. So I will just put that because it's not super important. Next, I want to fill in the icon. Here I have the option to put a link to the forum, but it will not have a forum discussion because I will not publish it. For the color, I will just copy that from another extension. So let's just open this, copy my colors for the icons because I usually use the same color for all of my extensions. And the icon, what could we use for an icon? So we have to use one from Frontend. So I could try to type my name, my extension name, to see if they have something mapped for that. Not really. What could I put? Like interests? Don't even know what to use. Guess we can just use the network icon. Anyway, it will not be published, so almost no one will see that. FA network wired. Like this. Okay. Something else I will do to help myself is to install the composer dependencies inside of my extension. That way PHP Storm will be able to know if something exists or not. And I'm not centered in my screen. I'm disturbed by this. And next we will actually install the extension inside of Flarum. So I go to my Flarum beta 14 folder and I can do composer require my extension, Flarum ext interests, and I can install the @dev, the asterisk @dev version, which will tell composer it can install any version it finds with dev stability, and this means it can install from the workbench folder even if nothing has been tagged. So we will just wait for this to finish. In the meantime, we can already install the things in the JS. So in JS, we have a package.json file. Here, it has been automatically generated and it's fine. We just need to install the npm dependencies. So to do that, I will use this terminal, go to the JS folder, and I use yarn to install the npm dependencies. And when it's installed, I can run the yarn dev command to watch the files. Okay, and as usual with the extension generator, we have a basic extension with just a console log, so we can check that the extension works. Next, I will visit my beta 14 forum, refresh the admin panel, and see if my extension is here. So it's called interest, so it's here. Let's enable the extension. Okay, no error, but that's that's a good thing because we have no code yet, so I would hope there is no error. And if I just go to the front end, just refresh, see if we have the console.log, Flarum ext interest hello forum. So the extension is now enabled and we can start to work. So let's actually discuss what the extension will do. So you have seen my thumbnail. Actually, I should have kept my thumbnail around. So let me find my thumbnail. It's somewhere here. Yes, so this is the thumbnail of this live stream. And it's kind of a recap of what we want to do. So maybe you know what this looks like. So the way I did this actually, right now I have created groups that have these names. One group called finance, one group called transport, books, networks. And what we want to do, so we want to show these just like groups on user profiles. So my ID is just like, we can actually prototype it like this. So the ID is that, for example, this user, they can select that they, for example, they say they are interested in finance. And if they do so, I want a little icon to appear on the user profiles, just like groups do. And actually, that will be the only feature. When they select something, it appears as a badge on the avatar, so that people can see it. When you are in a discussion, you can see that these people are interested in that kind of thing. And the way I want to do it is to reuse the logic. We will do a lot of reuse. So basically, it will show up like this, and I want people to be able to open this same kind of list, but I want the user itself to be able to select something. Here I have to be an admin right now to give them a group. So we will dissociate this from groups. It will not be groups anymore. It will be interests. And interests, anyone will be able to go. So I'm not sure where I will put the button at the start. I will put it here. There will be another button that says choose interest or select interest. And it will open a modal with just the list of interests. And you will be able to save it from there. So that's the idea. Yeah. And basically, yeah, it will work a lot like groups, except groups can be used for permissions, but the interests will not be able to be, they will not have any use for permissions. It will really just be cosmetic. And people will not be able to add new interests. Admins will have to select the list of interests. So there will be a new window somewhere in the admin where admins can create the list of interests. Right now it's groups, but it will no longer be groups at the end. Yes, we have new people watching. We are now up to 3 people. Yes, cool. Let me know if you have any question and if you hear me well and stuff like that. Yes, so I guess we will start. So we have a blank extension. There is nothing in that extension. We will start. So I have shown at the start, but there was not many people. I have shown this graphic. So when we start implementing, we can start kind of anywhere. I usually like to start with the database, then the eloquent model, then the serializer, and then the rest, depending on how I want to test it. So yeah. So let's start with the database then. So for the database, we create migrations to create a new table. So let's create a new migration. This one will be called, so we can actually call them anything we want, but it's best to use the date. That way it can be alphabetical. Usually I like to copy from somewhere else just to be sure how I did it usually. So usually I use the date like this. So 2020, we are month 11 and we are 22 now, 22. And we will have create interests table. But now we will have 2 tables, so usually when it's a case I like to use a number here, so that this is the first migration, create interests table. And then we will have a second migration. This one will be called 2020 11 22 02, and here we will have create interest user table, because we will have a relationship, we will have a many-to-many relationship with users. Okay, and for the content, I usually like to copy something. Yeah, so I will just import the helper. I will use the Flarum database migration helper, and then here I can return migration, and here we have some helper functions. So we have create table. Oh yeah, but actually that it could work. How do I prefer to do this? let's not do it like this. Let's do it because I will have some relationships to define. Let's see if I can copy from another extension what I want. So yeah, let's copy this because I prefer it like this. So first, the interests table. So we will do it in a way similar to Laravel. If you are familiar with migrations in Laravel, we will have an up function to create the table and a down function to delete it. So here we will have our table will be called interests. This time I will not bother with prefixes because the extension will not be published. But usually, yeah, actually let's put a prefix just in case. So maybe it's a better representation. So usually you want to prefix your table so that you are certain there is no conflict with another extension if two people were to install the two extensions. So the name of the table will be Clark_interests. In this table we will have an ID. We will oh Billy, the stream didn't automatically start? Okay, that's odd. Usually I think the streams automatically start. Oh, but maybe not if you are in the... If you see the iframe, I think it will not automatically start. But if you are on YouTube, it should start automatically. Next, we want some things. So we want properties similar to groups. So groups, what do we have? What kind of properties do we have on groups? We have name. Groups, they have two names. They have singular and plural, but we will not bother with that because in our case it doesn't really make sense to have singular and plural because we will not say people are something. We will not say people are interests. We will say people like this interest, and the interest will have a single name. So we will have one name, we will have the color. I think we will use the colors, and we will use the icon. We don't really need this thing about hiding something because the whole purpose is to have this public. Technically, we could make it so only admins could see some of the interests. But for now, we will do all or nothing. We will have a permission to select who can see the things. So we have the name, and then this actually is not necessary. We don't even really need timestamps, and this we don't really need either now. So we have name, icon, and color. Let's put it in the same order as groups. So, and this we also don't need. I copied too much from the other extension. So interest, we have an ID which is auto increment. We have a name, we have a color, and we have an icon. And that's all. And I think we can make them. Let's make them nullable because it's optional. Okay, and the other table, I will copy this. The other table is a relation table. So this one, I will use interest user. So I use the singular, and this one is a relationship between interest and user. So yes, it's in the alphabetical order. Usually, yes, put the way I choose user interest or interest user, I just put it alphabetically. And this table will have will be a pivot table. So we will have interest ID and user ID. We will have a primary composite key like this. And then we will have some foreign keys, foreign interest ID, references, ID on. Oh, the autocomplete is now able to find that. It's amazing. In the past, I always had issues with PHP Storm. It was not able to guess that these methods existed. Interesting. And on delete cascade. And same thing with user. User references ID on users, so that one is a table from Flarum, and on delete cascade as well. Yes, we could have timestamps, but we will not bother with timestamps, I think. Let's just do it like this. So now we have the data. So we can check that this works by running the migration. So to run the migration, I can go back to my Flarum folder, run php Flarum migrate. We see the two migrations have run, and we will probably go in phpMyAdmin later. But now we can assume that these two tables exist. Next, we will do the eloquent model. So let's create a folder for the PHP. Let's create a new class. This one will be called interest. Interest will extend the abstract model from Flarum, which itself extends the eloquent model. Here we will specify the table. So the table will be named, we know how it's named. I can just copy it from my migration. So this is the name of the table. And that's all we need for now. What I like to do is just to document the properties. That way I can easily access them later. So I will just put the name of my columns from the database. That way I can access them easily because PHP will know that these magic properties exist. And the last one is icon. Okay, all good. We could create a relationship. We will need a relationship between user and interest, but the way we will use it, we will always access the interest from the user and not the other way around. So we don't really need to create the relationship here with user. What we will do is create the relationship from user. But user is a class, is a model that exists in Flarum. So how can we extend a relationship on another class that already exists? So the way we do it is with a Flarum extender. So in the extend.php file, we can call all kind of code. And here you see we have a few extenders that were already added by the generator. We have something to add the JS, the CSS, and the translations. What we will do, we will call a new extender. We will call extend model. So this is an extender from Flarum. We need to give it the class of the model, so it will be user. So we import the user class from Flarum. And we say we want to extend this model. Next, I will put this in parentheses so that I can call my code. And next, we can use the arrow to call a method on that extender. And here we have a few methods to add some different kind of stuff. What we will do is add a relationship, and I think we can use the helper. We can use the belongs to many helper. And here we need a few things. We need the name of the relationship. So it will be interest. We could prefix it. I think we will not prefix it. We will just keep it like this. So it will be just called interest. Next, we need to tell it what is. So you see here it's great with PHP Storm because we get the documentation. So we see the attribute is named related. It's a string, and below we see the documentation that Flarum has in the source code. So it tells us that it needs to be the class attribute of the model. Of the relationship model, and it needs to extend abstract model. So in this case, it's the model we just created called interest. So we pass the class attribute for that. And next we have a few optional parameters. This one we will need to pass, it's the name of the table. So this one cannot be automatically guessed by the system, so we will need to pass this. And the rest, I think we don't need to pass it because what is the next? Yes, so if we call back the documentation, next one is foreign pivot key. This one, I think it can be automatically guessed because this is Laravel magic. It will be able to guess that because this model is called interest, the column will be called interest underscore ID, and because the other one is called user, the name will be called user underscore ID. So I think everything else will magically work. So we don't need to pass any more information. Just by doing this, the relationship now exists. We need to call it somehow, but it exists. Okay, next. So not everyone has seen it. Who has seen it? I don't know. Now we have 3 people watching. So this is all of the stuff. So now we have done the database. We have done the eloquent model. But we want this data to somehow reach the front end. So we will need to use a controller and a serializer. Now, there are different things that we want to do. We want, in the admin panel, we will have a list of all of the interests, and we will need to be able to edit them. So in this case, there will be one controller to list, one to edit, one to create, and each of these controllers will use the serializer that returns just the interest. There is no need to return the list of all users who have that interest, because it's not relevant to the context. However, on the forum, it's different. We want to show interest based on the user. So instead of creating a new API endpoint, what we will do is add it to the user. So whenever the user is requested, we want to include the interest, just like groups. So we will focus on that first. So we will show the interests on the forum. Even though we don't yet have anything to create them, it's not important. I will add them to the database and we will test that. So let's create a serializer. Now we need a serializer to return the interest data. So to do that, I will add it to src. I will create a new folder, serializers. Here I will create a new class called interest serializer. And this class, basically all it needs to do is take some resource, in this case an eloquent model, and return the data in a way that Flarum can format into JSON API payload. So this one will extend the abstract serializer of Flarum. So I can import that class. I can add some abstract methods. And you see there is one method required. It's just get default attributes. And here we could do a few things. We could do just model to array, if you are familiar with that method. And we could handle everything on the eloquent side, or usually we might as well use this to explicitly list the properties. So I will just list the things. So I will list name, color, and icon. You see I'm not listing the ID because the ID is automatically included another way. So I don't need to put it inside of the attributes. What I can do here, I can add a binding so that the name of the properties are recognized. And something else we need to do on a serializer, we need to give it a type. So the type is another string that will be used to identify a resource, because so as long as we are in eloquent, so eloquent has a name for the eloquent model, but from the serializer to the model in the front end, we will have that type. So type is something defined by the JSON API spec. It can be anything, it's just a string, but it will identify this kind of resource. So usually I prefix it with my name, and then it will be just interests. And usually I put the type in plural, but it does not have to be. So this will be the unique name for this resource as it goes through the API requests. In one direction or the other, it will be called like this. It could also be just the name of the table if you want. You could call it exactly like the table, but yeah, I like to use here a dash, but I could use an underscore, it would work as well. Yeah. Yeah, so now we have a serializer, but it's not used. It has to be used somehow. So what we will do, we will, anytime we return groups, we want to return the interest as well. So what I could do just to get started, I will insert some interest in the database, just so that I can use it. So let me show you this in a second. I open, yeah, okay. So I have opened phpMyAdmin, so this is my forum. For now, I will insert some data manually. So here we have the table for interest. We will insert a new interest. So let's just copy one from here. So we had a transport. Let's just copy that one. So let's call it transport. Let's have that color and that icon. Now we have an interest in the table. And next thing, we want to associate this with one of the users. So we will go to the pivot table. And here we will insert. So we will have number 1, and we will connect it to user number 2. And user number 2 is this one, is the user named user. So now we have the relationship. It exists in the database, and we somehow want to show it in the front end. So yeah, it will work just like groups. We need to return it together. So how do we do that? So groups is a relationship of interest is a relationship of user. So we have defined the relationship between the allocant model of the two classes. So if we go back to the graph, so we have done the first part here. We have defined a relationship on the user model for that. But we still need to do all of the other one. We need to define a relationship on the serializer of the user model. And we need to define a relationship on the JavaScript model of the user. So let's do this. So to add a relationship to a serializer, unfortunately, we don't have an extender for that yet. It will come in the next beta, but for now we don't have it. So we will need to use an event. And the way I usually do events is to use a provider. So let's create a provider. So here I will create just a function. So this is, instead of calling an extender, you can just have a callback function. Here I will resolve the application. And from the application, I can register a provider. And my provider, I will call it user attribute, like this. Next, I need to create this provider. So let's create a new folder in here. Let's call this one providers. Let's create this provider. So user attributes. Actually, it's more like user relationships, but yeah, whatever. It works as well. And then I can extend the provider. I think there is one class. Yes, it's cool. There is abstract service provider from Flarum. I can just use that one. Next, I can have a register function. And in here, I can access the app. In the app, there is something called events. And in here, I can listen to an event. And then here we have the get API relationship. So this is an event that's used just to that's used when Flarum checks if a relationship exists on a model, not on a model, on a serializer. And here I will call a method called relationship. Next, I can create that function, public function. And here I can have the event being passed So this will all change in a future version, but for now it's like this. And here we have a check, so we can check, is it a relationship? And we can check, is it a relationship on the user serializer? And is it called interest? So that's the way it works with the event. The event will trigger for any kind of request. And then here we can check if it applies to what we want to change. So we make an if, we check is it the relationship we are interested in, and if that's the case we will return the relationship. So we will use event relationship. Is it like this? No, this is the name of the relationship. So we will use the serializer, and on the serializer we can return an has many relationship, which will map with, we need to pass the model, event model, and then we can have the serializer that's used for that relationship. So the serializer that's used is called interest serializer, and that's it. We can pass additional attributes, but otherwise they will be guessed. So basically this code tells us that when a relationship is queried on the user serializer, if that relationship is called interest, then we return some information using the interest serializer. And the way, how does it know how to get the data? Actually, it does so automatically. There is some magic for Eloquent. Because we pass the model, it will automatically guess that because the relationship is called interest and we passed an Eloquent model, automatically it will use the interest relationship on the Eloquent model. And that's the relationship that we defined previously, just above in the extend.php. So now we have the two levels. We have the two relationships, like we have 2 of 3 relationships. There is something I did not include here, is how do we tell the backend that we want this relationship? Because the frontend can request a relationship, but it has to be whitelisted, or the backend can always return a relationship, and that's what we will do. We will use another event. I don't even know. I'm not sure of the name of the event that we need, because it's not called like this, it's called will. Don't know by myself. So we will do a bit of digging in the core, because we want, anytime we return groups, we want to return the interest. So let's see how groups does it. So let's search for groups, but we will find a lot of stuff. So so we have too many results. We need to narrow this down. So one thing we can see, we can check the group serializer, for example. So you can see the groups, they have their own serializer, and it works a lot like what we just did. There's just a bit more logic because you can actually translate the name of the groups, but otherwise here you can see this is basically the same kind of stuff that we did. They also have a type, which is just group. Okay, so this we kind of have in our case. Next, I will search for group serializer to see where it was used. So we have some controllers that use it. And here we have what I'm actually interested in. What was this? Okay, so oh yeah, they are included. Yeah, but we don't need to care about that one. So this is the serializer for user, and we can see that this is not the same that we use. This one is a basic user serializer. I think we might use this one instead of what we have. And here we have a relationship with a check for permissions. And then we have an has many query. So this is what we have just added by using the event. We have added kind of like this. Yes. The only thing we cannot see here that I wanted to see, so let's just use the basic user serializer instead of the user serializer. What I want to know now is when the groups is included, because you can include relationships. So actually I will search for the basic user serializer. That way I can find the controllers that have it. So if I try to find a controller, where do we have some controllers? Oh, we don't see it. Oh, we need to go somewhere else. Actually, I think we will need to list a lot of controllers, because now the thing is, each controller can whitelist which relationships and attributes can be requested. And groups is whitelisted, must be whitelisted in a ton of places. So if I just try to find some controllers, so what do we have? Like the list post controller. Here you can see that the includes of that list post controller allow to include user and user.groups, and groups is a relationship. So in our case, we actually want that here, for example, on this request, we want user.interest to be included as well. So how do we do that? So first I need to find the name of the event, because I have kind of forgotten. So how will I find the name of the event? It's somewhere in the documentation. I think there's something called data, working with data. And here we should have like, if I try to find including relationships. So this is how we include them when we create our own controller. But do we have the documentation about how to include it somewhere else? Yes, it's here. So we can extend the will get data event, and here we can add some includes. So we will do it in the same providers. Let's import the will get data. Maybe let's just call the methods the same, get API relationship. This one will be just called will get data. So this event triggers every time a controller is about to return data, I think. And here we can do the same. We can do a check if event, and here we have some method. We can check is controller something, and then we can do the event add include, and here we could add user dot interest. The problem now is which controller. There must be a ton of controllers that have what we want. I don't know if we can search for user.groups, or will it just no, it just GitHub search. Can you be helpful? Can I do it like this? No. The GitHub search is not super good. I don't know if we can we look for something for exact match? Kind of, but not really. No. So there are just many controllers. Here we see there is a show post controller. We saw previously there was a list post controller. There's probably the show discussion, the list discussion. So what we can actually do to make our life easier, instead of checking if the controller is the one we want, because there are many controllers, we can actually check the includes. I think we should be able event Oh, can we actually? Yes, we can actually, we can access includes. So what we will do, because we know every time the groups is returned, we want to return the user interest. Actually, we just have to check if the user groups are inside. So we can check, is something in an array? So we will check is user.groups in the include. And if they are, we add the user.interest. I think this is this is an easy way to get out of this sad problem. And actually, this is even better because by doing it this way, if an extension includes user.group somewhere, we will also add the interests together. Otherwise, we will need to be aware of every extension that might add this relationship. Okay, so now anytime user.groups is included, user.interest should be included as well. And now I think we already have enough to test. So let's go on the forum, do a refresh. There's just one last thing. There is also the case when we show the user profile. Here we have the groups relationship directly. So I will add a second condition. If the groups is included, we include the interest. So this handles the case, this handles the show user, the list user, and stuff like that. So I will maybe add a comment. So this one handles all controllers with user included, like show discussion, show post, stuff like that. This one handle all controllers with user, or maybe for user resources, like show user. And I think like that we cover a lot of the stuff. Now let me show you. So we will open the network tab. I will go to the user profile, and we can see here there is a request that asks for the user. Now the request does not contain anything, it's just a GET request. And in the response, what do we see? So this is a JSON API response. We can see there is a relationship called groups. And inside of here we have some data, and here we have just the type and ID, and the actual information is in the included payload. So now there is something interesting. No, so this is just a group. The finance stuff is just a group that we have here. But I don't see my new amazing relationship. So something is not working. So maybe how can I debug this? So I can check that I correctly register my provider. I can try to do some debugging. So maybe let's check if this ever executes. I need to go back and forth. So it executes. So when I request the user profile, this event executes and this triggers. So that's good because it means the code so far is working. Here we have the add include should be working. So next we have the is relationship. We can check if this one is working as well. So let's put the hello, let's put the debug statement inside of the relationship. Let's see if this one works. So let's go again to the profile. We need to go back and to the profile. So it still works. So it means the relationship is working. one thing I'm not sure now, is my user ID really number 2? Maybe that's, let's not lose too much time because I made my manual relationship with number 2. Yeah, and that's the problem. The user is not number 2 actually, so of course it will not work. So let's try to find my user. So what is the ID of my user? It's 102. So let's just fix my test data. So here I had my storage, ignore. Let's just put the relationship on the correct user and see if it works better. So the debug statement has been removed. So now I go to the user profile again. Let's see what we have in the payload. So we still don't see, we still have the group. No, it's not the correct user. What's that? Why number 1? No, it's not what I was looking for. So I need to refresh actually. So I go to the user profile. Here we have a request for user. In here we have relationships. We still have only the group. So we know this works. We know this works, or at least it should. So we put a debug statement here last time, so we know the get API relationship works. Next step, actually it's not as easy to debug because next step, this code should make the should make a request for the eloquent relationship that we have defined here. But how do we know if that one works? That's a bit more complicated because I cannot just put the debug statement here. What I can try is to put a fake table name, and that way I will know if it works or not. So there is an error, but the error is not on the user request. There is an error, but it happens here. So it works to some extent because it works here, but it does not work here. So the relationship is not called. So that's a bit strange because I see we have some new people watching. I will do a bit of recap, I guess, soon. So, so of course I have an error on that page now. Oh, it happens. It happens all the time now. So I'm not exactly sure what happens this time. I hope it's not a stupid mistake like last time, but this time I have my return. So I know that this relationship gets called. So at one time when we request the user, Flarum tries to access the interests relationship on the basic user serializer. And here I return this. So, and this in turn should tell Flarum that it needs to find a relationship named interest on that model being a user, and use this serializer. And the relationship should be queried here. But this is not called because I changed the name of the table and it didn't work. So I'm not exactly sure why it's not working, but on the other hand, I noticed it seemed to be working at least for the user, for the post list. So if I go to the post list, if I go to the user, which should be included, no, there's still only the groups. So it's not included. Oh, the number of people watching is rising. Perfect time, because it's the exact time when I have a problem that I have not yet fixed. So I'm really not sure what is happening here, because everything seems to be working, at least until the eloquent relationship. But then it stops. No data is returned. So is there something stupid missing somewhere again? Here I cannot be missing a return statement because I'm not using a callback. So and I should not have to specify any of that. There will be an error if a key was not being guessed correctly. So is it really a belongs to many? I think it is. So, because if I try again to put a wrong table name, there is no error getting the user itself. There is only an error getting the list of posts. So this means this relationship is not being called when I ask for the user profile, which is very odd. Do I need to specify the name? Interest. Still does not appear to be working. Oh, now I have interests. Okay, so this made a difference? Oh, maybe... think I know why, but it's a bit confusing. Okay, so this did it. Okay, so okay, so how to tell that? So we have a relationship. So this is an event that triggers anytime Flarum tries to find a relationship on a serializer. And then we can tell this the name, we can tell it that there is a has many relationship on the serializer, that it uses this model, uses that other serializer, and next we have an optional parameter to give the name of the relation. That name is actually used on the eloquent model to obtain the relationship. When you create your own serializer and you have a function for that, the last one is optional because it will automatically fall back to the name of the relationship on the serializer. But here, I guess it does not work because inside of here, it automatically tries to guess, it uses the backtrace to find the name of the method that was called. But because we are not inside of a method, I guess maybe it obtains that name, and then of course it will not work. So anyway, it's now working. So we can see in the response payload, I need to refresh again. So in the response payload, we see there is a relationship for interests. Here we have the type that we define. We see the ID is 1. And then we can go in the included payload. And here we have the interest number 1 transport with color and icon. So that works. So now it's included in the payload. If we go back to our nice, how do we call this again? Graphic diagram. So we have taken care of the database, we have taken care of the eloquent model, we have now taken care of the serializer for the interest itself, and we have taken care of extending the user serializer. controller, we had to add some includes, so this is now done with another event. This we have just checked. That's the way I checked that everything here is working, is by inspecting the JSON API payload, and it contains what we need. Now we will handle it in the front end. So how do we do this? So here I showed the store and I showed the model. So we will create a JavaScript model that will handle that payload. So anytime it sees something of type Clark interests, it should use a model that we will define in the front end. So we go to the forum. Here we can create a new directory. So this one will just be called common. No, I usually put here. So we will need, no, maybe I can start here. So let's create a folder named models. I have been online for 1 hour and a half already. 1 hour and 15 minutes. I better get going with this because there's still a lot of work to do. So the model will be called interest. Here I will just import the default class interest extends model. Here sadly we cannot automatically import, so I need to write the import because PHP Storm is not able to guess. So we import from Flarum model. We import the model class, and here we will define the attributes. So one was called name. So we could technically have a different name in the accessor method and in the payload, because here when I define attributes like this, actually the first name will be the accessor name on this class, and the name in the attribute parameter, that is the name in the JSON payload. But in our case, it's just the same for everyone. So we just need to do this actually, and now we have the model ready. And in my index.php, so here I have my initializer. I can remove the console log. I will just rename my initializer to be a bit shorter in name. And here what I will do, I will call app.store.models, and I will insert my model inside of a JavaScript object. So the key needs to be the same name that we gave for the type. So the type is Clark interest, plural. This is actually the same name as the extension itself, but this is the type of the model. So this is the key in that array. It's not an array, it's an object. And then I can make equals the class. And now this means anytime Flarum sees something of that type in an API response, it will automatically use this model to keep a copy in the store. So we can actually test that it works, because if I refresh this page, I can use a method on the store. I can do app.store.all, and I can ask for all things that match this. Everything from the store that has type Clark interest. You can see there is one object, and it is, we cannot really see. We can see it. We can see this is we can see this object extends interest. So this uses the class we just created, and here we can see some methods. We can see the methods, and we can also inspect the data directly. You can see it picked up the data from the JSON API request. Yeah. Oh, sorry you have to go, but yeah. Glad you enjoyed the stream, Billy. See you another time. Let's continue. So we still have not made a lot of stuff. Next thing, I want to actually show my interest as a badge. So how do I do that? by copy pasting some code from core, of course. So so I will actually go to the user. So there is a file named user.js, which is a model. So this is a model for the user. And here there is a method called badge. So this is the magic method that we want, because anytime Flarum shows badges for a user, it calls this method. This method, you can see it creates an item list, then it gets a list of groups, and for each group it adds a badge with a special component. And then it returns it. So how do we change this? We use the magic extend function. So in the front end, we can do extend. We actually need to import that function. So the function import extend, import extend from Flarum /extend. So this is where we can import this from. Just for the looks, I will just import the app. App you don't need to import because it's a global object, but I prefer to import it anyway. So now we have extend, and extend, we can extend anything. We can actually extend is a method that does monkey patching on another model, on another class in JavaScript. So we can extend, and what do we extend? We want to extend user.prototype.badges. So we actually do it like this. So we tell it what is the object we want to change things on. Then we say the name of the property or method that we want to override. And yeah, because it's a method on a class, we need to use user.prototype. And I need to import user. So import user from Flarum /models/user. So this Flarum /models/user is what we have here. You can see it's inside /model/user. And we know the method is called badges. And when we use extend, so extend does not replace the method, it calls some stuff after the method. So actually, when this method is called, we can directly get access to the return. So the return is an item list. So we just take the items as a parameter and we can add some stuff. We could do items.add any kind of stuff. So what do we do here? We will actually do something very similar to groups. Let's do it. Let's copy what we have for groups. So you see here we get the groups. But we don't want groups, we want interests. So first let's rename the variable. So let's call this one interests, like this. Here we have two options. We can create a relationship called interests, or we can use a method directly, which is called, because here you see, so we have groups, and groups, where do we find groups? Maybe it's below. So it's here, so we have groups, has many groups. Actually, no, I think we have to do it. So we have to create a new relationship like this one. But this is a class that already exists. So how do we do this? We need to add something here. We need to access user.prototype, and we will create a new one called interest. And it will be model.hasManyInterests. And I think I need to import model from Flarum /model. And I can do it like this. So user.prototype.interest equals this, and this creates a new method just like the one that we have, just like this. So now I can just call this .interest because now it exists. And if we have interests, I will insert them inside of the item list. I will call this one interest. And yeah, but now I need to have my own component because here we had group badge, but I want to create my own. So let's go here. Let's have components. Let's have not group badge, but let's have an interest badge like this, and we will do some copy pasting because of course we will do, why not. So let's go to the group badge and you can see what it does. So group badge, this is the group badge, but we want to make our own interest badge, so let's just rename it. We need to import badge from Flarum, so in Flarum it must be something like flarum/components/badge. And here you can see if there is an attribute named grouped, we use that to set some attributes. So in our case it's called interest. Interest. Icon will be hatch.interest.icon. Style will be interest.color. Label interest.name. I'm not sure we need this logic here. I think we can drop this. And the type, here we have a special thing. I think this is only to be so that it can be targeted by custom CSS. And then here we delete the attribute name interest. Yeah, like this. And yeah, I think we have everything. Let's give it a try. So let's go to the user profile. Let's see what happens. Yes, we have an error. Group badge is not defined. Did I forget to change? Yes, here it should be interest badge. Let's refresh. And yeah, you can see we have a new icon. And if we take a look at the source code, we have our kind of badge here. We have the color, we have the title. So it's added just like a group, but this one is called interest and it's not a group. So if I go just to confirm if you have not seen, so I go away. Okay, so we have a transport group, but it's not what we added to the user. We have the transport here is an interest and we added it manually in the database, but then we show it on the user profile like this. Okay, so yeah, that's it. We have the list of so we are able to show it, and I think it should show up everywhere because we made it so anytime groups are included, we also include interests. So we will show it in discussion, we will show it, yeah, in many places. Okay. Now let's make a bit more logic. So let's focus on the client side for now. Let's add a way to edit the interest. So we will copy kind of like what we have here. So we'll copy this kind of UI. We will do the same. So what is this? It's edit user modal. So let's go to core and let's see if we find that thing. So edit user modal. That must be the one. So we want something similar. We want the thing with groups. I think that's the thing. There is something different here because the list of interest is preloaded into the forum. But I think I will not do it like that. I will do it so the list is only loaded when you open the edit modal. So let's copy. Actually, I don't think I need to copy this. Oh, how was this done? It's done. No, it's not exactly done like I want it to be done. So first, let's add a new API endpoint so that we can list all of the interests. So let's create a new folder for controllers. Let's create a new controller. This one will be called list interest controller. It will extend the abstract list controller of Flarum. we have some abstract stuff, I guess, so let's implement it. So there is a data method. This one has to return whatever we want. So the return data will be simply the interest sorted, ordered by name, and we will, for now, we simply return everything. And here we need to add a few other things. We need to say serializer, which serializer will handle the data we return from data. So it will be the interest serializer. And for now, we don't care about permissions, so we will just leave it like this. And that controller, we can add it to, we can use the new extend roots extender. Let's extend the API, add a new GET request. The path will be interests, and the name will be just, I will use my name of extension .list or .index. And then the handler is the name of the controller, like this. Maybe let's just add a bit of spacing, just like this. So now I should be able to request /API/interest. And this API will return my list of interest, and you see it uses the same serializer as before. And that way we can use this to populate the list of things when we need them in the front end. So now let's add a new modal. So let's create edit. So user interests modal. Let's call it like this. Export default class user interest modal extends modal. Modal is a class from core, so we import Flarum components modal. And the modal, what do we have here? So we will have a title. I will add that later, and we will have a content. And content, we will need to build it with some checkboxes. And to do that, let's copy some more stuff from here. So this was the thing that was doing the edit. I think I will need to write that again. I cannot really reuse this. So I will use the same class name and same structure, but yeah, I will do it again. So let's, how do I do it? So I need a list. I need my list of everything. So let's have the onInit method. So onInit, inside of onInit, we will request that API endpoint. So m.request. Not m, we can use app.request. So app.form.attribute API URL. So we will do a request to that new endpoint we just created. And with the result, which are interests, we will store them here. So we will have this dot interests, and we will store the interests on this. This one is called modal. Let's just import app. Where is it? this. Okay, so this will make a request to the new endpoint. It will get the list of interest. When we use app.request, automatically the response will be parsed. So you can see here I can just take interest because actually I'm not sure if this one will do it. We will see. I'm not sure anymore if it automatically parses this into models or not. Let's just try already. And what I want to do here is use this.interest.map. And then I have interest, and here I will have each one will be a label with a class of checkbox. Inside of here there will be an input of type checkbox. I will add the other stuff later. Then there will be here there was a group badge, but there will be the interest badge dot component. Here I will use the same interest. I will pass it to the component, and then I will just have the interest dot name. I think if I do it like this, I just need to handle the case when it's null. So if it's null, I will return the loading indicator component like this, and this component comes from Flarum. This is a component that Flarum has to show a spinner. Okay, I hope I'm not going too fast, but yeah, I need to make some progress now. So let's... actually, I will not see anything because I don't have any way to open the modal. So I have my modal, but I need a way to open it. So I will add it to the user controls. So how do I add something to the user controls? That's a big question. Here you see I have something else. I have the accept terms. So this comes from the terms extension. So actually I can just take a look at the terms extension and see how it's done. So let's go here, forum. We have add, I think that's the one. This thing extends user control and adds a new button. So I will just copy that. Reuse this, extend user controls. So how do we import this? This is in utils. We also need to import button. Here we will show a modal, so it will be user interest modal. Here we will need a translation, so we will do that later. The icon, we will use the same as the extension. Network, how is it called? Network wired. This one will just called Clark interest. We don't need this check for now. Yeah, but and then here it's in moderation controls, but I don't want to put it in moderation controls. What else do we have? So we have user controls, destructive controls. Okay, so we will put it inside of user controls. So if I do it like this, and if I just maybe make my translation key, how was it called here? It was called user. Let's just have it like this. Now if I refresh, do I have my new button? Yes, I have my new button. So let's try to open the modal. So we see a spinner, that's good. If we go to the network, do we see the request? Yes, we see the request. and we have the response. Why is it stuck spinning? Because I have not redrawn. So I need to tell Mithril that I want to redraw when the request is done. So let's have this, but there might be an error. This interest.map is not a function, so I think here I need something additional. It was not automatic as I guessed. So here, if we log what is returned from the request, yeah, we see we have the data. So we have everything that was written. We have data key, then we have some static JavaScript, static JSON data. So here we have a few options. We could loop through that and use it like that, but it's much easier to just use the store. So app.store.parse. I never know how it's called. So if I go to the store, there is a method named push payload. I never know how it's called. So just called push payload. And if I pass the response in push payload, this will take care of creating models for everything that's in the response. It will put everything in the store, and what will be returned will be an array with everything we had in the response itself. So this is perfect. It just does all of the work for us. So if I open this now, so it's not looking great. I think I'm missing some stuff in the modal because there should be some kind of padding. So if I go to the user edit modal, what do we have here? Content, we have a modal body. So maybe let's include that modal body. So how I can do it, like maybe let's call this one interests, and content we will just return a div with that class, and it will show this.interests. That way the spinner will be inside of here, and it does not overcomplicate my code. Oh, but it's called the same as my attribute, so this will not work. So this dot let's call it form. I don't need to refresh that, I just need to refresh this. Cool, yes. There is another difference. This modal is huge. This one is smaller because it's using a class. So let's copy this. Let's have the same class. So we will not use the edit user modal. We'll call this one user interest modal in case we need to style something. And the important bit is the modal small. This is a class from Flarum that just tells it that we want a smaller modal, like this. Now we could have a title, so let's put a translation here. So app.translator.trans my name .forum.modal.title. Okay, now let's add these translations to english.yaml. So here I can use my extension ID, then I have forum, then I have user controls, edit, so edit interest. So this is the button on the user profile, and then I have modal, title, and this one can also be interest. How did I call it? I called it my interests in the screenshot. Let's use that. Let's use this as well. Profile, edit interests. Okay. Now let's try to have this actually reflect the state, because if I go to this user, it will not actually show that this is selected. And we also need the save button. So let's add the save button because it's an easy addition. So let's use some groups. So let's use some form groups. just to make the UI a bit more interesting. So like this. Let's put this inside of a form group. Here I didn't need to say div, I can just do it like this. So now we have one form group, we will have a second one. The second one will contain a button. And this button will be, so here we had a submit. Was this actually used? Yes, I think it was used. Because in a modal, we have a few magic things. Here we can see in the button of the user edit modal, we have a this.loading property, but it's not defined here. At the top, we don't see it because all modals, they have this.loading. And all modals, they also have the ability to call onSubmit. So when there is a form in all modals, and when you submit them, it calls this. So we can just use that magic. So we just need to copy this actually, and by having a button that submit automatically, it will submit the form that's somewhere in the modal, and then it will call the onSubmit method. And the loading will automatically, I don't know if it will automatically be set, but at least it's already available. So I can just do it like this. And then I can have my onSubmit. Let's have this. Let's have the onSubmit. Here we set the loading, and then something happens. You see here we have this.attributes.user. So every time we open the modal, we should pass a user as an attribute. That way we can know which user we want to save the information on and which user we want to get the information from. So yeah, so we call this.user.save. Here there was a data function. We will not actually copy. We will not copy the data itself. We will put everything here. So for now, I'm just copy pasting from the edit user modal. Here we have an error handler, and you see we use a function named this.onError. And this function is defined on the modal as well. It takes care of showing the error inside of the modal instead of outside of the modal. So this method already exists. We don't need to create it. Basically, we just need to tell the request that we want to use that error handler. Then another thing, we have the hide method. So this tells Flarum that when the user has been saved, we want to close the modal. So this method already exists on the modal. And here we have a catch. So if there is an error, we want to stop the spinning animation and just redraw to remove that animation. Okay, next. Here we have some data. So you can see we had a username on the user. So we had a few things. We had the username that was passed all the time. We had relationships. Relationships was based on this loop here. How does that get by ID? Okay, so we will not do it exactly the same way. So actually in our case, we will not pass anything else. We will just have relationships. So I will even put this here. I will have relationships. And my relationships will be called interests, because it's the same name as always. And now here we need to decide how we store the information locally and how we send it to the API. So this I don't need. So in core here there was a choice, like every group has a property. Like there is a groups object, and this group object has a key for every group, and every key is a stream, and the stream can contain 1 or 0. That's one way of doing it. I don't like it very much. I would prefer to have an array, and in that array just say which group IDs or which interest IDs are currently selected. I like that better. Something else we can check is how is it actually sent, the data. When you edit a group, how is it sent? So if I go here and I go to network, if I change my groups and save, how is the request done? So you can see we have a relationship, and here we have groups, data, and then we have each group, we just have the ID and the type. This is the way we do it in JSON API. But if we check the source code, we see here they get the full information before passing it to relationships. They don't create the data key, they just pass the list of groups. And the list of groups is a full model of the group. But actually, why is not the full model sent with the attributes and everything? It's because there is some additional logic inside of the save method here. And I know that it strips everything except the ID and type. But we can just have the ID and type in how to do this. Yeah, so how do I want to do it? I just want, okay, let's say I just want to store the IDs in the modal. So let's just have this dot selected interest. This will be, we will use this dot hatch dot user dot interests dot map, and here we will take in each interest, and we will just copy the ID. So this array will just be the list of IDs. There is one problem with what I have done. Interest might be null if the relationship is not loaded. So let's create a variable just for that, and if this exists we do that, otherwise we have an empty array. Okay, and now what we can do here, we can reflect what is selected and not in the checkbox. So we can have selected, or is it selected or checked? It's not even visible there. Is it checked? I think it might be checked. Checked. Is it checked? Well, it will be checked if this dot selected interest dot index of interest dot ID is different from -1. So if the interest is in the list of selected interest, then this is checked. And here we will have an onChange. And when there is a change on the checkbox, we will switch this. And how do we do this? Maybe we could add a new. Let's add something additional here. I can have a new variable called checked. I can put this inside of here, then I can simplify this, and here I can do a check if checked. If it was checked, then we want to remove it. So then this means here interest equals interest.filter, and here we want all the ID except the current ID. So ID that is different from ID. And if it was not checked, then we can just add the new ID. This dot selected interest dot push ID. So this is a simple switch, like we take whatever is in the list. If we check and it was not there, we add it. If it was there, we remove it. So now it means that when I load this, when I load my modal, it should reflect what is already selected. Okay, so there is an error. Button is not defined. I have not imported the button. So you can see it reflects what is already selected. Hello, Emiran. Welcome to the stream. We are back to 2 viewers. Yes. It started well with 4 people. Now we have less people, but anyway, I will just continue, and I know some people also just like watching the replay. So yeah, my button does not look great because it's actually missing the content. So let's add the translation app.translator.trans. This one will be modal.submit. And how was it called? It will call save changes. I will just call it save. So I have my submit button. It will just say save. Like this. So yeah, I don't know if people are coming back or watching. I hope you can follow. So we are adding some interests. It works kind of like groups. There is a modal to edit interest, and right now I'm working on the front end to show and save the selected values. So what will happen now if we click save? Probably an error. No, there is no error, but I have not coded anything, so I have not finished. So here we can see when I make a request, there is a relationship, interest, and it's empty, because I have hard-coded empty for now. But now we will use that list of IDs and we will pass it to the relationship. So how do we do this? So here we will have relationship, interest, and instead of an empty array, we will use the list of IDs, we will map it, and we will do like the edit user modal. If I go back to the edit user modal, I will do the same. I will do app.store.getById for each one that I have in my list. And then I will leave Flarum handle how to serialize this for the request. So get by ID, but in my case it's called interests, just with the ID like this. So now if I try again, so I have only one interest. So but at least we can see, will it send the same ID? No, it's still empty. It's not a good start. So did I refresh? I save now. Okay, now it's working. So relationship, interest, data, and we have my type and ID. Okay. So the request is working, but you see if I remove it, there will be a request with an empty array. But now what? It has not removed my transport interest because we have not done the backend. So I think we can now switch to the backend. And oh, it's already been almost 2 hours. So maybe I will keep some work for next week. We will do the save, but for the admin panel part, we will probably do that another time or never. I don't know. Let's do the save. So we need a new controller. We need, no, we don't really need a new controller. So if you see what happens when we save, we are actually calling the /API/users endpoint with a user ID. Because that's one way of doing it. We could have our own controller just to save this new information. But here what we do is actually we save the user, we do an update request on the user, and in that request we pass the user ID. Actually it's passed in the request itself, in the URL, and then we have a relationship object, and then we do some tests. And the way we will handle that, there is an event. Again, there is an event for everything. we will listen to an event for when the user is being edited, and we will read the information from the API. So this is what I showed at the start with my diagram. So the read, we had all of this stuff. In the write part, we don't have a serializer. So if we look at what we have done, so we have used the front end. In the front end, we have used a combination of the store and model to, on the model, we call user.save. And in that, we set a relationship, and the relationship is built with information from the store. And we have just inspected that the request to edit the user contains the correct payload that we want. Now we need to handle the backend. We already have the eloquent model set up. So all we need to add really is a controller. But there is already a controller. It's a user edit controller. Now we just need to extend that user edit controller. To do that, we don't really extend the controller. There is an event that's called saving for the user, and we will just listen to that. So I will create a new provider on the PHP side. It will be save user. I will just call it save user, extend abstract provider, abstract service provider, register. Here we will listen to the event, this.app events, listen, and we will listen to the saving event. And you can see we have a few ones. We have edit, we have saving post, we have saving user, saving group, saving settings. So the one we need is saving user. We will call a function here, so public function saving. So whenever the user is saved, we will call this code. And what do we do here? So if we take a look at the saving event, you can see this event will have the user that will be saved. We will have the actor that is performing the request. We have the attributes, and this is actually the data. This one, it comes directly from the request. So if I just dump the attributes, the data, we can take a look. So this is a service provider. I need to register it. So here I can register my save user. Now if I try to save the user from here, save, okay, there was an error because I triggered the error. So if we see the response, you see I just dumped the data property on the event, and we just try to keep the chat. So here I have dumped the data attribute, and this attribute, you can see basically it's the same. It's basically what was passed in the request. So now we can pick whatever we need here. I see a comment, which one better? If you start a new forum, you should start with beta 14 because only beta 14 is now supported. And it will continue to move forward. There will soon be beta 15 with even more changes as we go near to stable. And all my future videos will be about whatever is the current Flarum. So now we are working on beta 14. It's not worth going back to beta 13 for anything. Almost everything is now up to date, so there is no reason to use beta 13 if you start something new. So we want to access this information and save it in the database. So I have prepared the code on another screen just so I can do it with you. So right now we have just dumped everything, but we will do something a bit more logical. How to say that? So how do we access this? So we can use the array get accessor. So if I use that to access data, and here we have a few things. So we have relationships. So relationships, yeah, I think it's just called, is there another? So if we take a look, relationship, yeah, what's missing, I think just the data. There is a data property. This one is not in the dump here. So directly we can access the relationship key, and inside of here we will have an interest key. So we can access relationships.interests, and this will contain then there will again there will be a data attribute, so like this. I think inside of that data then there will be an array, and inside of that array there will be the list of everything we have selected. So how do we do this? We can do it like this. So here we can put this in a variable, so interests, can do it like this. Next, so this will execute anytime we save the user. So this might not always be here. For example, if the admin changes the username of a user, the same event will trigger, but this will not be inside of it. So now we want to check if this is inside of it. To do that, the easiest is to check for isArray, because if this is an empty array, it will be falsy, so we cannot just do an if interest. But that way, if this is an array, then this means the user passed something. And inside of here, we will just sync actually the new, we will not do a lot of validation right now. So what we will just do is take the event user, and we will say that after save, we use a callback, and here we will have the user, no, not this. After save, we will save the interest. Something we can just do maybe is a variable in the middle for like interest IDs. Next I can do a for each on the interests. And here I can have interest IDs, and I can push the interest ID, because here we have still an object with each key has type and ID. So we just take the IDs, we put all the IDs together. Next we will take that variable here, and here after the main user is saved. So we cannot just save it. We cannot just save this here, because if another attribute causes an error, we don't want to save anything. So we use after save, and after the user itself is saved, then we will save the relationships. And here we can do user. I can access my relationship, which is called interest. So this is the Elocant relationship, and I can call sync to sync the IDs, like this. And that's kind of it. So we are missing a lot of stuff. So here, ideally, we should check the ID exists. We should ideally check that the IDs that were provided exist, because otherwise there will be a database error here. And something else we should do is here, we should have check the user is allowed to check the actor is allowed to edit that user. Because right now any user can edit any user's information. That's not good, but we will not take care of it today because we don't have time. So this might be for another time. Oh, you're saying, oh, you're waiting for Flarum stable. Yes, we are all waiting for Flarum stable. But in the meantime, we try to keep the ecosystem alive. And yeah, having a lot of extension is also a good way to test the extension API. Because yeah, we are still making changes to how Flarum works in regard to extensions mostly. And so it's very useful to have a lot of extensions now. Sadly, they will be broken. It's almost a certainty, but but that way we can test everything that needs to be tested. So yeah, so I have put these to-dos so that you know, let's test if the code works. So it's completely insecure, but it should work. So let's test. So now if I go to interest and I unselect this one and save, I can actually check the response and I should already have an ID of what we have. So I think it's gone. So if I refresh, actually it disappeared from the UI immediately. If I check it again, now it's again added. So it works. There's just my interests, they are still not, I still have my interests as groups here. So maybe I will insert a few more. Let's just insert all of these inside of the database. So I will not add any new feature. We are out of time. It's been 1 hour already. I will just make a demo of everything we have done with the extension. So let me just get back to this. Yeah, so we are still missing the admin UI, so I have to insert the, it's not this, I have to insert my interest manually in the database. So I have added just the transport interest. Let's just insert the other ones that way. So I have transport, let's add the finance interest, just so I can make a demo of everything we have done. Next I had books. Let's put that one in the database as well. Save that, and I can also add the last one, which was just called networks, like this. Yeah, so now what I can do, where is my window going? Okay, let's check that all of the interests appear in the list. Good. I think we are missing a space between the icon and the text. Let's just add that. So here we have the badge and we have the name. We'll just add a space because maybe you don't notice it, but I do. Now we have a space. So yeah, now we should be able to select any things, but we still have them as groups. So now I will just delete the groups. That way we are not confused. So delete the groups, because I created groups with the same names just for the demo at the start. Okay, and now interests are only this new thing that's called interest that you can edit from here. And yeah, I think we did the round. So maybe I will take this extension again next week to add the missing features. And yeah, as I said, it's super insecure right now because there is absolutely no check. For example, you see if I'm not logged in, I can go to a user profile and I can access the modal, and there is nothing preventing me from changing the interests of that user because there is no check. We have not added it. So yeah, we will probably take that again next week if I don't have any better suggestion. Okay, so if we recap, but yeah, I have already kind of recapped. So we have that new modal. You can go to any users, you can select some interests, and when the interests are selected, they are shown just like group icons, and they will appear anywhere you see groups. You will see these badges, and the badge can have color, icon, and yeah, I think that's pretty neat. And yeah, so I will put that code on GitHub, but I will not publish it as an extension. So feel free to reuse that for your own extension, whatever you're trying to build. I think this will be useful. Here we added a relationship to user, but it will work really like the same for discussion, for example. If you wanted to have that same behavior, but for discussion, Everything from database, relationship, serializer, includes, models in the front end, store, everything works the same. There is just extend points in the front end and the backend where you want to extend. You need to find the name of the correct components. But except from that, yeah, it's really the same. So, yeah. So that will be all for tonight. I hope you liked this. Yeah, let me know as always if you have any suggestion for the next streams. Otherwise, I will just try to come up with an idea. Right now, the idea is to continue this because I did not have enough time in 2 hours to really make this into a full extension. So yeah, let's switch back to camera. Yes. So yeah, we have just one people left, so I will not wait too much for additional questions, I guess. So thank you for joining, those who joined live. Thank you very much. Thank you, Thank you, everyone who watches the video even in replay. You can also leave me suggestions in the comments or on the forum. If you want to support these videos, you can support me using Patreon or GitHub sponsors. GitHub sponsors is even better because you're actually sponsoring my open source code and this channel. So yeah, GitHub sponsors is really nice if you want to suggest me some things to create. Yeah. Okay, so thanks for joining and I see you next weekend probably. Bye.